All right. Looks like we're going live in a minute. We'll give it a second to see if people will start showing up. Uh, just wanted to say, everybody, this is one of our first times we're doing live, so there might be a little bit of technical challenges, but please have patience with us. Looks like we are going live, going up on 20 seconds here. Um, so we'll take a minute. Is there anything that's non-consequential that we can discuss while we're waiting? Uh, yeah.
Do you think our predictions for the next caucus are too consequential?
Yeah, too consequential.
But
Yeah. So
most
why?
really
You know
can
what?
look forward to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I know. What we can discuss. We'll talk about cubing until we know we're live.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're still doing Rubik's Cubing. Actually, just before this
That's true.
video,
Yeah.
my little sister was trying to teach me how to solve a 4x4 Rubik's Cube. I almost got there, but and that is what I am currently working on. Yeah.
Yes. I actually think that I don't. I think that pure anything over a 3x3, I think it's unnecessary complexity. I don't really understand why people do them.
I think you could argue that Rubik's cubes are unnecessarily complex. So as long as we're being that crazy, you might as well up the levels of complexity. I'm also working on something called a megamix, which is 12-sided shape, a dodecahedron that twists and moves in the same way like a Rubik's cube. But I think we have. One of the reasons I'm more comfortable going up in complexity, especially here, is because while it's a challenge for us, as a family, we can kind of collaborate, and that's why my little sister was teaching it. She is far better than us combined. So,
That makes sense.
yeah.
All right. Okay. So I think we probably have like a 2 or 3 minute buffer on the beginning. But at this point, I think we probably you know what we'll just keep going with one more. Oh, I can tell you this. I just heard that they are closing. That it looks like theaters will close nationally, like pretty much across. So they're canceling virtually every single movie that is coming down the pike for the next 2 months.
Wow.
I've also heard that there are 2 months. I've heard 2 month periods where they're saying groups over 50 would be discouraged, which I thought was interesting. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we're coming up
sounds
on
about
our
right.
3 minute mark. So we'll just do one more. Yeah, any non-consequentials? Go ahead.
Well, just on the groups over 50 not meeting. Yeah, I mean that's what theaters are, and as we're kind of leveraging this into the politics stuff, that's why both Sanders and Bernie said they weren't doing in-person rallies, because those are also by definition groups of large people getting together. So and yeah, it is a little discouraging because things like movies and big groups like that can be fun, but I'm also really interested to see how this social distancing will play out even.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump right in.
Yeah.
I'm going to start us off with, so we are live. If you're out there, feel free to ask any questions you have. And I'm going to start us out with tomorrow's voting event, March 17th. So tomorrow's voting event is coming out. It's going to be Arizona with 67 delegates, Florida with 219 delegates, Illinois with 155 delegates, and Ohio with 136. And I heard one of the states requested that it be delayed till June, and it looked like a judge denied the request.
Really?
Yeah, so it looks like everybody's going to go. That means we got 577 delegates tomorrow. I'm going to put my prediction right here, and my prediction is going to be Joe Biden with 410 delegates, Bernie with 160 delegates, and Tulsi Gabbard with 7 delegates. What do you think?
Yeah. I think it'll be a little closer between Sanders and Biden. I'm saying Biden will have 300 in the lead. Sanders will have 276. And Tulsi Gabbard won't have no one, but she'll have exactly one delegate, from this
there you go.
these states.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump right into. Actually, you know what? It might turn on the 5 minute mark, so we'll give it one more second here, or just give it another moment. So yeah, I think it will be interesting to see what happens, and it is also fascinating that they are going ahead because it almost seems like those people are going to need to go out when maybe some of them don't want to go out.
Yeah.
That's gonna be rough. That's gonna be really really rough. So, yeah. But let's jump into our main topic. All right. So we wanted to talk about the March 16th. Wait. Yeah. You know what? I'm sorry. We want to talk about the March debate, which was the CNN Univision debate with Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, and Tulsi arbitrarily excluded. Very unfair and very frustrating. But we wanted to talk about power lines and sour lines. So power lines are when you have a power line is when you have a line that you what is the word we're looking for? So a power line is when you have a line that hits really well that has good resonance, and a sour line is when you have something that just kind of clunks and doesn't go anywhere. So for Biden and Bernie, what did you think? Did you think Biden or Bernie? You want to talk about Biden's first and then Bernie's?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you think?
We discussed
Biden's
last night that
Yeah.
we did think Biden won the debate. His points in general hit a little harder, but particularly the one that hit hardest for me. So he had very powerful connections. So
Yeah.
he first connected this coronavirus almost to war in like bringing out military action against it and whatnot. So disease to war. But then later he said xenophobia is a disease. So bringing it back around, disease is war, but this worldview is a disease. It really, I talked about how I felt like the debate was almost in two parts with the coronavirus stuff and the politics stuff, and he really brought them together with those two connections. But in one line, he said xenophobia is a disease, and that really hit for me. Yeah.
Yeah, actually.
I'll keep
Wait,
talking.
wait, hold on. Oh yeah. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Go right ahead. Sorry. What was the next one?
Again, I think the power line for pretty much everyone was he vouched to have a woman as his vice president. The pretty much right after the debate, I had like news alerts on my phone, like Biden vouches to have a woman as vice president. So even for people who didn't even watch the debate, they knew that. So yeah, for I'll say for Biden, two power lines for me: xenophobia is debate. A woman will be my vice president. What do you think?
I think that the xenophobia as a disease was a very powerful line. I also think that by far the power line of the night was that the promising to have a female woman president. It is incredibly powerful line. I think it really won the entire night. I think it's the only thing that people are going to be talking about out of that debate. It was the only thing really said of significance. There and now I've seen some crazy names coming out of the woodwork. Within our own commenters were asking about commenters were specifically asking about Hillary Clinton. That would he choose Hillary Clinton? Do you think that's even a possibility?
No, I
No
still
way.
think people are scarred by her loss against Trump.
Yeah.
She's not going against her even as a vice president.
Like you want to choose your VP because it's going to help, right? Like another one I heard that wasn't that outlandish was Michelle Obama. What do you think of that?
And that strengthens his connection to Obama yet again. But I don't think it would be a wise choice, kind of for that reason. It almost feels redundant. If I could say, I believe she would be a great vice president and exactly what he's going for in representation for women and especially women of color. But what do you think? Do you think that would be the wisest choice for Biden's vice president?
No, I don't think it would help at all. And the reason why is, you know, uh, it's a good question. The biggest one is she never really. It seemed to me, Michelle never gave any intent that she wanted to be a politician. Right? She never projected that, so it would just come out of the blue. It would just. I don't think it would really help him at all. So no, I don't think that. I don't think that would help in any way. Okay, so. Uh, Yeah, so those are some good power lines. I'll give you a few of mine. One, I thought Biden. I couldn't believe how hard he rolled um, against China specifically. He said that China is an authoritarian dictatorship, violating they're violating human rights around the world. He used the term "in the shadow of China." He said flat out dictators. Like I couldn't believe like how bold faced his aggression, his verbal aggression toward China was. Because on the Democrat side, you get this idea that they're more diplomatic, and his was just like, and it was very odd. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I caught on that as well. He was almost aggressive towards, but also did express the want for international collaboration. So it wasn't all harsh. One thing I read as kind of harsh as well from both of them was the question of military involvement in the coronavirus, and this is something I wanted to ask you about. We talked about how Tulsi Gabbard was not able to be there, but if she were there, what do you think her power or sour lines would be? And one thing that I read to me was when they were talking about military involvement, both Sanders and Bernie were like, absolutely yes, we need to use them in any way possible with this coronavirus. And Tulsi Gabbard is known as non-interventionalist, a bit of a pacifist. So I could almost feel like if she were there, we'd have one no on the stage. Maybe I'm reading into that. But what if in an ideal world where Tulsi Gabbard were in that debate, what do you think? Do you think she would have had some good power lines? Do you think that she could have like tripped up, had some sour lines?
It's a good question. Yeah. No, I don't think she would have had. Well, yeah, Bernie and Biden both had power lines. I think she would have had some power lines. I think she could definitely speak on. I think some areas she would have good plans, like education. Empowering women. Like that seems, there's a lot of progress that needs to be made as far as women having equality. There's, and I don't think we're ever going to get an ERA, an Equal Rights Act. It may be too late to frame it in that way because I think a lot of people are like, well, we're almost there. Is that needed? And so I think what she would be able to do is just frame, okay, here's what I can do to help women in the workplace. Here's what I can do to help women who are struggling with social issues. And she would have standing, right? That's one of the biggest issues that we're dealing with right now is Bernie and Biden have no standing on half the things they're talking about. They're like, let's talk about immigration. They don't have no skin in the game. Like it's an abstraction to them, right? It's and so yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I was surprised to learn Sanders did say he did have some skin in the game, particularly with the immigration, and that he is the son of a Polish immigrant. That was news to me, honestly. Not as connected as maybe
Caucasian
Tulsi would be.
Comes to America, we're like
not as connected as Tulsi would be to women, but I think that we are in this stage where like we are just focusing on those two, and I'm learning a lot of new things about them because I used to be focusing on like half a dozen to a dozen people. And I think when we were talking about the earlier debates where there were a dozen people and each of them maybe had one power line, maybe had one sour line. You could pay a bit more attention to what each of them were saying. So trying to connect that back to the power lines and sour lines. I think there were a couple of flubs. I'll say the sour lines.
Big time.
I think none of that, neither, those, they are both politicians, and as such, neither of them were entirely proficient in talking about the coronavirus. Particularly, Sanders switched the words Ebola and coronavirus for almost a minute as he was talking about the coronavirus. And those words mixed up happen all the time, but as you said, especially for older candidates that are trying to prove they are sharp and in the running for president, that was one kind of sour thing I picked up for Sanders. What about you?
I have a little bit of sympathy for both Biden and Sanders, because one of the things that's happening right now, and I think it's going to happen in even more magnitude, is optics. So in politics, optics is almost everything. The reality barely matters, right? And so what I mean by this is, right, so Bernie Sanders, believe it or not, in my opinion, he's incredibly sharp. I think his mental facilities, he's right on it. Like, I think he's sharp as a razor, right? My concerns is being close to 80. I don't think he's physically, I think he is not as ship-shape physically as he is mentally, and that's not even debatable. I mean, Bernie, October 2019 happened, right? So, Bernie has synthetic parts in his body. He doesn't have any synthetic parts here, so like that's not even a debatable subject. But one thing that I think is really bad is he slipped up, right? And he forgot something. A candidate who is not a promise to America for an 80 to 86-year-old president, you're going to think, oh, did they just forget something? Oh, did they have a bad day? But when you're going to be America's first 80-year-old president, immediately the question comes in most Americans' minds. They're like, is that cognitive loss? Just because of the age. And I think it's, and it's an optics issue. For Bernie, I don't think there's no cognitive loss.
Yeah.
But it won't matter, because every time he makes a memory slip up, he's standing next to Joe Biden, who makes memory slip ups pretty frequently, and the question of cognitive loss immediately comes to mind. It's a huge issue.
Yeah.
So it was bad.
That's a good point, and I think that's maybe another fault of particularly Biden. When asked about the coronavirus, he made it seem as though age didn't matter. I'm doing everything a 30-year-old would do: wash your hands, stay away from large groups, and I don't have any of the pre-existing conditions that would make me susceptible to it. You have the pre-existing condition of being over 70. The
CDC lists it right there.
Yeah.
It's a serious concern.
I think that's definitely something they both need to recognize. They're both a bit elderly, and especially in terms of the CDC and this virus. But in general, just making sure to be extra on top of your game, because it's especially in question. That's a good point to raise.
Totally agree. A lot of great power lines, that we got to talk about. Thank you very much for giving us a chance to talk these over with you. Thanks for your patience with our live video. And thanks again. Have a great millennium.